Today's video was inspired by a conversation I had with a family I just adore. They wanted to talk about how to help their daughter who was having some aggressive moments at school. So let's start with this scenario. Every day at school, a child is selected to put the weather up on the board. And one day, the selected child put the word sunny up on the board. But the young lady we're talking about, who's 7 and autistic, she said, but it's also windy. It's sunny and windy. And she locked onto that mismatch so intensely that she tried to rip the sticker off the board. And when the aide tried to block her from doing that, she hit the aide. I've worked with hundreds of families, and I've lived this with my own autistic son. So I know how easily moments like these get misunderstood. That's why I really want you to hear this. Because if you've ever been the parent getting those calls from school, or the professional witnessing a child and thinking, what just happened here? That confusion and overwhelm is real, and you're not alone in it. By the end of this video, you'll understand what's actually behind the hitting, and you'll walk away with strategies that reduce hitting by supporting the root cause, not by tightening consequences. So here's where we're going. First, we'll break down what was really happening with that weatherboard moment and why hitting isn't the choice it's often assumed to be. Then we'll talk about replacement behaviors that truly work. And after that, I'll show you how to use consequences that teach without shaming or overwhelming. And finally, what schools and aides need to understand so children aren't punished for something that they can't yet control. Let's start with what everyone in that classroom missed. Most adults, including teachers, paraprofessionals, even parents, see hitting as a decision. They think the child chose to hit, that the child knew better, and they need a consequence strong enough so that they won't do it again. That's the typical lens. But with autistic children, and I would argue with most children, hitting is rarely a choice. It's a signal, a sign that their nervous system is overloaded, their flexibility is gone, that their problem-solving skills have collapsed, and they have no language or strategy available in that moment to express that in another way. So what do we do about this? Well, I'm going to show you in a minute, but first, we need to talk about why traditional consequences fail. The weatherboard example is perfect. Adults describe this child as hitting when she doesn't get her way, or she can't handle being told no. But what was really happening was cognitive inflexibility. Her brain was locked onto the board is wrong and I have to fix it. And when the aide blocked that action, she wasn't making a calculated decision to hit. She was overwhelmed by a mental loop she didn't yet know how to exit. When we shift our perspective from they to they can't yet, the question changes from how do we stop the hitting to how do we support the child before the hitting is the only option left. Often, the best strategy to intercept a child before they resort to hitting is to offer a replacement behavior. A replacement behavior answers one question. What can the child do instead of hitting that meets the same need in a safer way? So for the weatherboard example, the solution could have been something beautifully simple. The aide could have offered her a piece of paper and said, "You're right. It is windy today. We can't change the board, but we can make our own weather picture. So we can sit down and do that. You can keep it on your desk and look at it. So when it feels uncomfortable, you can know that it's really windy and sunny." That way, she could get to fix the weather, but without using her body. That's the heart of replacement behaviors, meeting the underlying need. But timing is everything. Replacement behaviors work best when we catch the child before they cross into fight or flight. When the child starts perseverating or repeating themselves or freezing or escalating in tone, or they just seem stuck. Those 30 seconds matter more than anything that happens after the hit. Let's use another example. Say you have a child who hits a sibling if the sibling takes his toy. Most adults think, oh, he hits when he doesn't get his way. But what's really happening in that moment is that the taking of the toy feels sudden and unsafe. It's not entitlement, it's panic. A replacement behavior there might be a certain phrase that you practice outside of the moment, like "give it back, please" would be better. But in the moment, if all they can muster is "give it back," even in an angry voice, that's better than a hit. Even encouraging your child to stomp their feet when they feel angry is better than a hit. They'll outgrow that. This isn't something we want to encourage them for the long term, but it's better than hitting another person. So the idea here is that the adult does have to help step in and teach them a replacement behavior that serves the same purpose as the hitting. So in the case of taking a toy, that would be either protecting the item or communicating distress, asking for help. Those are all replacements for the hitting that serve the same purpose. Another example where aggression might occur is in stopping a preferred activity. In that case, the adult often thinks that the child hits when they're told no. But usually the real issue is that stopping that activity feels physically jarring to them. They have a lot of discomfort and no flexible way out of it. The hitting usually means, if your child hits when it's time to stop a preferred activity, I can't handle this abrupt shift, and I don't have a way to express that. So a true replacement behavior would be a way to help them express that discomfort in a safe way. In addition to replacement behaviors, discussing with your child what might help them transition more easily when it's outside of the moment can also be very helpful. So the replacement behavior we're trying to offer our child in this case is designed to meet the same need that the hitting would meet, whether that's expressing distress, protecting something important to them, or buying them time to regulate. So over the next few days, if your child escalates and hits, try to figure out what it was that led to it. I know it feels like it comes out of nowhere and they're so fast, but the more you can figure it out even after the fact, the more you can learn to preempt it in the future. And if you're an educator or clinician, I'd love to hear from you. What kinds of scenarios do you see that lead to children's aggression? If you could drop it in the comments, that would be so helpful. It helps me create content that addresses the realities that we're all dealing with. Now let's talk about the hard part, consequences. I know that parents feel stuck between two positions. One, I don't want to punish my child for their disability on the one hand, but two, on the other hand, I can't let them think that hitting is okay. What often happens is the say sorry cycle. That's of course when a child is encouraged to say sorry for hitting, and they may even be sorry. But a forced apology doesn't teach anything. It just ends the moment. And even if the apology isn't forced, it teaches a child that they can hit or lose control or do whatever happens as long as they apologize for it. And that's not really the message we want to give our child either. If we're going to give our child consequences for hitting, they have to be logically related to the incident itself. They have to be developmentally appropriate, predictable, and supportive and not punitive. Here's an example. Say your child hits you during the bedtime routine, whether that's getting ready or settling into bed. You might say, tonight I'm going to sit beside the bed over here because you had a little bit of a hard time keeping your hands to yourself. We can try again tomorrow. That consequence is logically related. They hit you at bedtime, so you're going to create a little space to keep yourself safe. It's proportionate. You're saying, I'm just going to step aside here, not you're on your own, kid, you got to put yourself to bed. It's also expressing compassion, right? You understand that it's hard to have a consequence, but that you can try again tomorrow. The whole topic of consequences generally is a really big topic that I can't discuss fully in this video. I just wanted to give you a sense as it related to hitting. Now, for this work to really stick, it's really helpful if schools make a shift too. So one of the most productive things you can do is bring these ideas to a team meeting. You can express, your child doesn't hit when they don't get their way. It's when they feel overwhelmed and out of strategies. That single sentence invites a completely different response. You can encourage the school to identify early warning signs of dysregulation, replacement behaviors that they can prompt, even if it's upon reflection after the fact, to think about what they could do next time. They can figure out some predictable scripts that they can use, and how to proactively support your child before they cross the threshold. The goal isn't to ignore hitting, it's to reduce it by meeting the need before it becomes physical. So here's the big picture. Hitting isn't defiance, it's communication. And when we reframe it, we can teach our children to stay safe without shaming them or expecting skills they don't yet have. This combination of replacement behaviors, compassionate, logical consequences, and proactive support is what actually shifts things over time. If you want help building a plan that fits your child, that's the work I do with families every day. I'll put a link in the description box of how you can contact me if you think you might be interested in working with a parenting coach. If this video gave you a new way of looking at or thinking about hitting, I hope you'll consider subscribing, giving it a like, and I'll see you in the next one.